Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Career Path series with me, Omar Abedin. So, in the last video, we covered my journey with Reckitt and Colman, Pakistan, and how I was able to find a role with Reckitt and Colman, Dubai. And I was about to set out on that exciting journey. Before that, though, a couple of things about Reckitt and Colman, Pakistan's stint. One of these incidents I think you'll find very interesting. It had to do with culture, company culture. So Reckitt and Colman was going through a cultural transformation process. It was literally called transformation. It was a global, massive project designed to transform the company culture, make it more agile, make it, less traditional, less conservative, less formal, and so on. So I was, part of the team that was leading the implementation of the transformation process internally. So, we were doing a big company-wide event. We were inviting all the staff. We were even inviting people from our distributors and sub-distributors all over the country because this was going to be a company-wide rollout, and implementation was everything. So just before the event kicked off, Tariq, our MD, called me aside and he said, "Listen, Omar, I want you to ask the first question when I finish my talk." And I said, "Okay, what do you want me to ask?" And he said, "I don't really care what you ask. All I want is for you to call me Tariq when you ask me the question." And I just looked at him blankly. I said, "I'm sorry, what?" And he said, "You need to call me by my first name, Tariq." I said, "Sir, that isn't going to happen, because in South Asian culture, talking to your MD with the first name is considered highly disrespectful. It's like, me calling my father by his first name. I think I would die before I said it, and my father would probably have a heart attack if I said it to him." So he said, "No, you have to ask, and you have to use my first name." And I was like, "Sir," and he said, "No." I said, "Tariq Sahab," and he said, "No." He said, "Tariq," and I was like, "Oh my God." Anyway, so Tariq got up there on stage. This was happening in the Crystal Ballroom of the Marriott, and I want to say 1994, 95. And he got up there. He gave his speech. I did not hear a word of his speech. I was so freaked out about what I had to do. So anyway, he finished, and he said, "Are there any questions?" And I put my hand up, and I stood up, and I asked him a question. And I swear to God, I don't remember the question I asked. I do remember, however, using his first name, Tariq, in the question. And when I did, there was a massive inhalation of breath from 400 people in the room, and all the oxygen in the room vanished, and and I just collapsed back in my chair, having asked the question. And Tariq, looked down his half-rimmed glasses at me, and he said, "Omar, that is a good question." And again, there was an inhalation of breath because, in a traditional European company, it was kind of against protocol to refer to an officer in the company by their first name. It just wasn't done. So anyway, there were a bunch of questions asked. A lot of people were, curious about transformation and how it was going to work and so on and so forth. And eventually, the finance director of the company, who was actually sitting at my table, or I was sitting at his table, stood up. This gentleman's name was Mr. Isar. He was one of the most terrifying finance directors I've ever met in my life. Terrifying in the sense that he could just freeze you to your seat with one look. His sarcasm was legendary. And so he got up and he said, "Mr. Ikram, what if someone does not wish to participate in this transformation process?" And Tariq looked down at him from the podium and said, "Isar, not Mr. Isar, Isar, either that person will change or they will be changed." And there was pin drop silence in the room, and Mr. Isar looked like he'd been deflated with a pin. And people say that his entire persona changed after that day. The most active transformation that we could all notice was the change in Mr. Isar's demeanor and behavior. The reason I point out this particular incident is because culture remains a topic of importance today. If you want to drive a certain culture, it has to be driven from the top. It has to come from the leadership. If people don't buy into it at the top, you can keep talking the talk, and nothing will change in the organization. That was a huge learning for me. So anyway, I thought I'd mention that. The other interesting thing about my time with Reckitt was that we actually managed to stem the downfall in the volume of shoe polish sales that we were really struggling with. And part of that was, again, relaunched the product, did some nice communication using one of Pakistan's most popular young actors at the time, linked the use of shoe polish to personality enhancement, trying to present an emotional benefit. And lo and behold, the volumes of cherry blossom stabilized and started going up slightly. And then when we combined it with the launch of Cobra, our volume actually went up quite a bit. I don't remember the exact number, so I won't try and give you a number, but from what I recall, it was in the region of 40 to 50%, which for a category that had declined 70% over the last 3-4 years was really cool. And this was one of the things that was in my CV that I had sent to Ken Newman. So when you're making a CV, one of the things you really want to focus on is making sure that the key stuff you did follows a certain pattern. So it describes the situation briefly. It says what action you actually took to fix that situation, and then the results, right? And this way people get a very clear idea of what impact you were able to deliver. So that's just an aside. It was a one-page CV that I sent to Ken, so there wasn't much on it. I just try to keep it as focused as possible. So now, fast forward to September 30th, 1996. I've flown to Dubai, landed in the city. It was, even in those days, it was from a middle class boy from Karachi. Dubai was fancy. It was my first time there, but it was my second time there, obviously. So I went to stay at the old Jumeirah Beach Hotel, the same place where we'd had the conference. And Ken came and picked me up from the office from the hotel the first day. It was really nice. We got into the office, and Ken invited me in and asked me to have coffee with him. So happy to, meet and greet. And on the first day, he asked me about my boss in Pakistan, Tariq. So I was like, yeah, sure. And I told him, whatever I could. And what I didn't know at the time, the context at the time, was that Dubai was going to start reporting into Pakistan in terms of reporting relationships. So Tariq was going to be Ken's boss, and he was just trying to get, the inside track and how to manage Tariq and all that. What I didn't know was how problematic that was going to become for me, because Ken expected me to give him, for want of a better word, dirt on Tariq. And first of all, I didn't have any dirt on Tariq. And second, even if I had, he was my ex-boss. I wasn't going to talk about him to anyone, just like I wouldn't talk about, Ken to anyone else. And I haven't for a very long time, nearly 30 years. However, when I declined to share whatever it was that Ken was looking for, things took a turn for the worse. I was from day 3, I started being subjected to a level of harassment that in hindsight was completely unacceptable. In one of our meetings, and there were like 7 or 8 people in this meeting, we were talking about trade marketing ideas for baqalas, small shops, groceries in Saudi Arabia. And Ken, somebody said something, and Ken, looking right across the table at me, said, "Oh, what are you talking about? You're talking about some stupid little Paki being slapped around the head by a Saudi. This is a quote." Ask me how I can remember it word for word 28 years later. Well, there's some things you just don't forget. That was the moment I realized that I was in deep shit. And I went home that day and I told my wife, look, I have 3 options. 1, I can quit and we can just head back to Pakistan. 2, I can try and find another job, which is not likely to happen because I have 0 Middle East experience. I've been here 3 days. Or 3, I can really put my head down and work my ass off and, change this guy's mind. And so that's what I did. I had a lot to learn. The Middle East was a very different market, very multicultural. It's a melting pot of nationalities and backgrounds. I met some amazing people, had the chance to work with some incredible team members. My boss, K.R. Subramaniam, who is not on social media anywhere in the world. The smartest marketer I've ever met in my life. IIT, IIM graduate from India. Just incredibly smart. Then marketing team members like Michele and Tara, quite a few others whose names are slipping my mind right now, but phenomenal marketing team. Christine, of course. And then we had a great sales and business development organization. Very, very interesting characters in the finance team. Rupak, Ralph, Nina in supply chain. I mean, it's incredible that I'm, still, and Tanya, of course, still in touch with many of these people just because it's was that kind of an experience. Anyway, we had, for the most part, we had an amazing time. Traveled all over the Middle East like crazy. Expanding distribution just by the fact that this team was now in the Middle East. Sales were going up 50-70% year on year because distributors that were being managed from the UK all of a sudden found a brand manager sitting at their desk or a sales guy calling them every week, and the focus increased in the market. Our presence improved. We had some iconic brands like Dettol, obviously, which is like a Lysol equivalent in our part of the world. Toilet cleaners, air fresheners, laundry aids, like all kinds of amazing products in the Reckitt umbrella. And then along came the merger with LNF. Reckitt had acquired Lane & Fink, which was the actual owner of Lysol and a bunch of air freshener brands and so on. And so we did that massive integration. Took months and months to get the branding right, and it was a lot of work, but it was great fun, great learning. And about a year and a half into the journey, Ken came to me in public and gave me a promotion letter and said, you've worked your ass off. It's well deserved. I got a standing ovation from everyone in the room. It was fantastic. It's like everything was going great. The only thing was, in order for me to, I guess, overcome my natural deficiencies as a Pakistani in this environment, I was acting as the designated driver for the football team at Reckitt. So every weekend, I would be the guy driving them to the bar. I don't drink, but I would be the DD. And then, I'd be dropping them home at night. And, it was a bit much. I had completely submersed whatever little personality I had into this process. So after I got the promotion, I went back to my wife and I said, you know what, I'm done kissing ass. I can't do it anymore. And she said, I'm kind of shocked that you've managed to take so much crap over the last year and a half. So anyway, after that, it's not that I became rude or aggressive, but whenever someone would make a packy joke or make a comment about people doing X, Y, or Z, I would let them have it. I wouldn't take it lying down. I would make a joke at their expense. And all of a sudden, people didn't find it funny anymore. Especially one or two people. So at the end of my second year, I was about to go home to Pakistan on holiday when Ken came and handed me a letter of termination / transfer back to Pakistan. He said, your contract's been ended. You're heading back to Pakistan. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, at that time, our reporting had changed. So we as a country were now actually reporting into South Africa. And so, while I was packing up my desk, I called the VP of the region, an incredible gentleman by the name of Nick Horn. I called him and just said, hey Nick, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I'm heading back to Pakistan today. And he's like, huh? What? I'm sorry? What are you talking about? So I told him about my letter, and he said, hold on. I'm not aware of this. What's happening? So I said, well, okay, I don't know what to tell you. The letter's in my hand. He said, okay, just leave the phone on your desk, go to the fax room and fax me the letter right now. You have my fax line. I was like, yeah. So anyway, I put the phone on the desk, went to the fax room, faxed it to him, came back to the desk. I said, hey, are you there? And he said, yeah, I just got this. I have no idea what it is. Let me go find out. So do not leave the office and don't leave your desk. So I said, okay, thanks. Standing by. And so I went to, just sat around for a while. 15-20 minutes later, Nick called back and he said, hey, so you cleared all that up. Is Ken there? And I see Ken coming out of his office, not looking very happy. So basically, Nick informed Ken that I was a part of the marketing organization, and I, couldn't be sacked by a local MD, and my work was exemplary, and there was absolutely no justification for this action. So Ken tore up the termination letter, and I went to holidays with incredible relief. So anyway, when I came back though, things really went to shit. Like, with my promotion, I'd gotten a company car. I was given a car, a new car, and then I got a call as I was driving home from someone in the company saying, oh, you've been given a new car by accident. Please return it tomorrow and we're going to give you an old car. And I was like, yeah, whatever, man. How petty can you get? So they gave me an old clunker, which would barely move, but it is what it is, right? Petty stuff. My expense reports would sit on the MD's desk for months without getting approved. I was basically paying for travel out of my pocket, and the expense reports just wouldn't get approved. They would just sit there for months. Anyway, so this just became very, very negative, and so my wife and I again talked about it. We were expecting our first child, and we said, this is really not worth it. It's a very toxic environment. It's time to head back to Pakistan. Our child should be born in Karachi anyway, with her grandparents and all that. So at the end of my third year, headed back to Pakistan. This was the end of September. And it was, I had mixed feelings. I was just relieved to be out of there, honestly. But I was also sad to leave Dubai because I really like the place, and it's something that's become a part of who I am. Anyway, before I went, a couple of interesting things happened. One, I met with Johnson and Johnson for a potential role with them, and they said, "Look, we really like you. We're going through a little bit of a reorg ourselves, so we're not sure if we will have a role for you, but we will be in touch, and we'll be in touch." And I said, "Okay. Well, I mean, if you guys think something is going to happen, tell me, because I'm taking a container load of my stuff back." And they said, "No, we can't commit to that. So off you go. Safe travels." And so we went back. The other thing that happened was that I made peace with this departure. I was like, you know what? If it's meant to be, I'm gonna be back sometime, someday. And if it's not, then it is what it is. So ended up back in Pakistan. More on that in the next video. I hope you had some learnings here. One, don't compromise on who you are. While it did result in a promotion for me, it shouldn't have from that perspective. Don't make people jump through hoops because of your perceptions of who they are, or where they come from. It's completely unethical and unfair. And second, if you put your head down, focus, do the work, there's always a reward, whether it's a monetary reward or some other kind of reward. You will learn, you will grow, you will become a better version of yourself. And third, know when to cut your losses and leave. So, hope you found it useful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.